Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is a former Israeli ambassador to the United States and a former chief negotiator with Syria in the 1990s, Ambassador Itamar Rabinovich. Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview.
Thank you.
You currently teach at several institutions, some in Israel, the Tel Aviv University, and also in the United States, New York University, and you're a fellow at the Brookings Institution in Washington. Many hats. You're also the author of several books, one of which is The View from Damascus. We'll get to Syria, which is obviously your specialty. But before, I want to begin with the deal to free Gilad Shalit, who spent more than 5 years in captivity. He has been exchanged with the first batch of prisoners. How do you feel as an Israeli and as an Israeli diplomat?
I support the deal, but I cannot say that I'm happy with it because the price, if you look at the details of the swap, some of it are, I'd say, intellectually and emotionally unacceptable to release people who not only killed a young girl but ripped her heart out. Or in principle, the fact that it includes 5 Israeli citizens who are Arabs but citizens of Israel, and for Israel to agree that Hamas will determine the fate of Israeli Arabs is, of course, a major issue of principle. I could go with a long litany of what is problematic with the deal, but I'm proud of the fact that my country and my government, when it came to the question is, do we desert and let an Israeli soldier sent to battle by his government to die, or do we pay a very expensive, a very heavy price for releasing him, had the courage to make that decision. So I'm not happy, but I support the decision.
What made this decision possible? The outlines of the deal were known for years. Why did it suddenly happen?
I think for 2 reasons. One is that in conflicts and conflict resolution, there's a question of maturity. In an industrial conflict, we know from experience that when a strike is announced in some company, actually a labor lawyer could tell you in the first day what the terms of the agreement would be, but it may take weeks or months before the management and the trade union are ready to make it. They need to mature towards the deal. And the same happens in swaps or deals of this kind. A price that the Israeli government was not willing to pay 5 years ago or 3 years ago, the same prime minister, it was willing to pay now. What has facilitated the decision was the moderation of some of Hamas's demands. Hamas feels exposed. It is exposed by the weakness of Syria, growing dependence on Egypt, and by the certain achievement that Fatah and Abu Mazen had in the UN. And they are trying to create some headlines or good news for themselves, and of course releasing that number of prisoners will be exploited by them in terms of Palestinian politics.
So you don't think it is a Hamas win? Many people see it that way, with the images of the leaders of Hamas welcoming the prisoners, kissing them in Gaza.
No, undoubtedly, it's a short-term win. But the question is, 1 week from now or 2 weeks from now, how is it going to affect realities? And what we read recently is of a growing unpopularity of the Hamas government in Gaza. People are very unhappy with the isolation. People are very unhappy with the fact that a movement that was elected to power because it represented cleanliness as against the corruption of Fatah has itself become routinized and much more similar to traditional Arab politics than the spirit of the Arab Spring. So a week or 2 weeks from now, when the immediate impact of the deal dissipates, we'll be back to the same reality and the same balance of power between Hamas and Fatah, or its complex relationship with Israel, Egypt, the rest of the world will not have been affected.
But what changed in Israel? Why this government, which is a right-wing government, has been pretty much hardline, suddenly gives up
Well,
on this issue?
As somebody who negotiated in the 90s for a center-left government, I can say very clearly it's always easier for a right-wing government to make concessions because it has the credentials for making concessions. It is not depicted or seen as being soft because it is right-wing or hard-line. The issue is always to get the hard-line right-wing to make the decision to move on. And obviously, the Prime Minister made a decision that he had to do. He gets a lot of credit points around the country, not so much for the specifics of the deal, but for the ability to make such a tough decision. And people are hoping that this is indicative of the Prime Minister's ability to make additional tough decisions as we move on in hopefully in a diplomatic process.
Do you think this could relaunch the dormant peace process?
In and of itself, no. I think it would take more than that. But since you mentioned, we spoke earlier about the tension or the competition between Hamas and Fatah. If Hamas gains points, Fatah wants to gain points, and maybe it will feel a greater inducement to get into negotiations. Or maybe the Egyptians, who as being part of the deal making together with the Germans, would feel encouraged to go back to playing the dominant role in regional politics that they seem to have lost with first the decline and then the fall of the Mubarak regime.
I want to get to Syria. The head of Hamas, Khaled Meshal, is, we think, still based in Damascus, but obviously events there are changing quickly. How do you see the situation evolving in Syria?
I think that the Syrian regime, the Ba'ath regime of Bashar al-Assad, is doomed. I do not see a way for this regime to rehabilitate itself, to rebuild the legitimacy it has lost, to make the Sunni majority forget the bloodletting that happened first in 1982, and in recent months I see sectarian tensions between Sunnis and Alawis mounting. I cannot see this regime resurrect itself. At the same time, it may take a while. The army is still supporting the regime. The two major cities of Damascus and Aleppo have not joined the rebellion. The international community is blocked in the Security Council by Russia and China in a peculiar revival of Cold War atmosphere. And most importantly, both Western powers and Arab states feel a bit uncertain about the alternative, about the opposition. Here is a paradox. The opposition has been successful in evading the regime because it is shapeless. But because it is shapeless and so anonymous, people know nothing about it and are worried that Bashar al-Assad, bad as he may be in their eyes, might be replaced by something that for some may be worse. Maybe some say the Muslim Brotherhood.
Is this Israel's fear, that they'd rather deal with the devil they know than the devil they don't know?
No, not anymore. It was a line of thinking in Israel in 2005 when George W. Bush wanted to topple Bashar al-Assad. It is no longer the case. Between 2005 and now, Syria has played a devastating role for Israel as Tehran's main ally, as a facilitator of Iranian approach to Lebanon and Gaza, a partner with North Korea in trying to build a nuclear reactor. I don't think Israel sees any value in Bashar al-Assad. And Israel, frankly, is realistic in understanding that even if it wished, it would have very little impact on what happens domestically inside Syria.
Is a civil war really possible in Syria, like in Iraq after the U.S. invasion?
I think it is, because if the regime falls, there may be a civil war. We see elements of sectarian fighting in places like Homs. And I could see a situation whereby the Alawis retreat into the Alawi mountains along the shores and defend themselves against retaliation. So maybe not on the scope of Iraq, that is divided three ways between Sunnis, Shias, and Kurds, but Syria was never very well put together as a state, and it could be bursting at the seams, yes.
Just from your interactions with some of the Syrian opposition, what do you make? Is this a serious group of people, or is it organized? Is there any hope that they can reproduce what happened in Libya?
Yeah, I should say I meet Syrian opposition leaders in academic conferences. I have nothing to do with their activities, but I heard them speak. I appeared on panels with spokesmen for the Syrian opposition. They would be the first to tell you that they have very little interaction with the people who actually organize the demonstrations, but they help them smuggling satellite telephones and smuggling out images that they spread around the world. But I met a group of very smart, very intelligent, very impressive young Syrians who want a real change in their country. I guess that if they ever come to power, they would want to reopen negotiations with us and reclaim the Golan Heights. But at this point, they have no qualms about interacting with Israelis.
Okay, on this note of hope, I want to thank you very much, Ambassador Rabinovich, for coming on the France 24 interview. And thank you all for watching it. Stay tuned for more news here on France 24.